My dad was so funny. We had a surprise party. We told him we didn't want him there until 6:30, and then we all would be there at 6 to get.
Now it works.
It was sort of funny, but Mom knew what was going on.
Yep.
Okay, everybody, will you get your seats? Take your seats. And welcome to the Tuesday night Payson Tea Party meeting. And we welcome all of you, a lot of new faces, and so that's a great thing. We're going to start our meeting with our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance. This is Brandy.
We're all going to just pray to the Lord together. Father, we thank you. We come before you as one. We come before you as a unified, we the people, your people. Everything is coming to us, and we need discernment and wisdom on how to navigate the days ahead. I ask, Lord, that you would bless us in this meeting, that you would be the voice of the people speaking, that they would have your Holy Spirit-filled peace, and that the truth would be made known so that the people can be prepared for what's ahead. Father, we thank you that you are our peace and that you are our salvation. We thank you that you bless the Tea Party in moving forward and all the people that have planned this and put together the agendas and the times and the schedules and the meeting. We were all here divinely appointed to come this day, and we're looking to hear what you have to say through your people. We pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Okay. And Jerry, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a neat surprise come along with Warren. Warren? Yes. Warren, come on up and hold it. Maybe steady it right here so I can read it. Okay. About 11 years ago, in February of 2009, the Tea Party movement began about 11 years ago. And Warren here made up this great thing, and it has this little...
I didn't make it. I had it made.
Oh, had it made, because it is beautiful. And I know there's many of us in this group that are as creative as this, but it's not me, and it's not Warren, but so it is beautiful. But let me read what it says here. On the black plaque, it says, right here, okay. Don't let it slip off the edge here. Okay. The Payson Tea Party movement consists of conservative political organizations that campaign on a variety of issues and endorse candidates for political office. It began in 2009 via a series of protests against new laws. Individual candidate positions, that was a comma. Oh, okay. No, it was a period. Against new laws. Individual candidate positions varies, but the most common threads are fiscal conservatism and reducing the size of the executive branch of government of the United States. Signs frequently capitalize TEA as an abbreviation for taxed enough already. Many describe themselves as constitutional conservatives. The term movement describes themselves as constitutional conservatives. The term movement is used because there are many autonomous groups that identify with the Tea Party. There is no simple national Tea Party organization. It is not, at this time, a political party. This was back in 2009. The Obama legacy, over 1,000 Democrat seats lost to Republicans, 14 Senate seats, 69 House seats, and 12 governorships, and 910 legislative seats were lost because of the Tea Party. That was the big election of 2010 and 2012. So anyhow, we're going to set it on the chair here, and after the meeting, you want to come and see, because it's got all these great pictures down there. So anyhow, thank you, Warren, for sharing. This was a neat treat for me. So anyhow, since we have so many new people, I am Shirley Dye, your fearless leader the president of the Payson Tea Party, and I've been here since the beginning, back in 2009, and we have met weekly all the way through from 2009, about the middle of 2009, we started meeting weekly, and we met weekly all the way through until the beginning of COVID, which was a year ago. And then we only got about half of our meetings in last year. We are going to miss next week because this January, February, and March, we were only meeting every other week because of the cold and all this kind of stuff. But in April, we will start meeting weekly again. We've been meeting here at Ponderosa Bible Church, which has been a really great place to meet, very comfortable, was really good for social distancing all back last year and all. But many of us want to go back and support Tiny's Restaurant, which should be opening sometime in May, where we have more time to socialize beforehand and afterwards, and people can come and order their dinner. A lot of people like to come to Tiny's and order their dinner and have that be their night out. So we're looking forward to doing that. We had a board meeting last night, and I want to introduce our board. That's what I was going to do. So, board members, will you stand up, please? Okay, where's Connie? Oh, Connie's way in the back. Okay, so listen. We fund ourselves and make donations to Ponderosa Bible Church for our ability to be here by selling our 50-50 tickets. So they are $1 for one ticket or $6 for $5 and multiples thereof. So if you would like to help support us, did I say that wrong? This is why I make such a good leader, because everybody can laugh at me and I don't get my feelings hurt. So, anyhow, if you would like to purchase some 50-50 tickets, $1 for one ticket or $5 for 6 tickets. I'm easily confused, gang. I've got too much on my plate. So anyhow, that's Connie. She's our treasurer. Our secretary is Janet. Janet has to work, so she doesn't usually get here right on time, but you know Janet, many of you. And we have, how come my guys sat down already? Okay, Brad is a member at large. And Frank is a member at large. And Jim is a member at large, but he is here. Where's your hat? Okay, so I didn't recognize him without his hat. Pam's a member at large. There it is. He found it. Okay, so anyhow, we are obviously a loose affiliation of people who like to come out and get educated on different issues. And, you know, we have our 2 seasons. We have a year that's the election season where we hear from lots and lots of candidates. And then we have the off-election year where we hear an awful lot about the various issues that are of interest to people that are generally conservative, constitutional conservatives. Okay? And so we have a great time at our meetings. We like to laugh. So join us anytime to laugh. And let's see, we had our board meeting. For those that are regular members, we just talked about, we have constitutions we give out, and I put a bunch of them on the back seat right there behind our mayor, another black hat guy. Tom Morrissey is our mayor, so he's a dignitary today. Okay. And we have Sheriff Adam Shepard here this evening. And we have our speaker tonight is Sheriff Mark Lamb, shaking hands in the back there. And let's see, do we have any other elected officers here? Okay. Well, I serve on the sanitary district board, but that's okay. So, anyhow, we want to thank everybody for coming. So, anyhow, there's constitutions, and inside the Constitution, there is a little flyer that tells about our mission statement, our goals, and our principles. And so, if you haven't gotten one, you want to pick one up back there. I didn't bring a whole box of them because we need to get more inserts to fill some of our other constitutions. I think there's like 20 back there. So as you go out tonight, pick up, it's on the chair right behind our sheriff there and our mayor. Okay. So anyhow, come on up, Sheriff Mark Lamb. Okay. And also, Mr. Lamb, I understand you're an author.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, Denise,
What?
hold up his book. All right, there's his book. You know, she wants it to be signed. Did you already get it signed?
Perfect. I'll sign
She
it.
wants an autograph. Okay, so tell us all about you.
All right.
I probably won't tell you all about me. The book can do that. I do have a book. I'm no author. I just happen to write a book. I have some in the card. I'll bring some in when we're done here in case somebody wants some. But I just want to thank you guys for having me here today. I appreciate this. I love this country and I love this state. Thank you. So I take every opportunity I get to speak. So I want to thank Sheriff Shepherd for letting me come to his county and speak to you guys tonight. I know he usually loves the limelight. Right? If you know Sheriff Shepherd, that's not true. Sheriff Shepherd has been a great mentor for me, along with the other sheriffs coming in. I'm now in my second term, but these guys were so key on helping us kind of navigate. Let me tell you, there's nothing easy about becoming sheriff. As soon as you get it, it's politics and it's law enforcement combined, and it's not an easy job. So the support that you guys give us means more than you know. Has anybody heard me speak before? Good, because I'm gonna tell a story real quick. Because if you'd have heard, you would have heard the story. It's a sheriff story. So it's political season, and you got this bus full of politicians. They're going from town to town, and they're speaking. Well, they leave one town, they don't make it to the next town. And along their way, they crash their bus. Well, there was a farmer out there, and he takes them, and he scoops them all up, all the bodies, and he puts them in the pit out back and covers them up. Well, the sheriff comes out a couple days later, and he's like, "Hey, Bob, did you see this bus come through here?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, I did." He said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "Wrecked right over there." "What'd you do with all the bodies?" "Well, I put them out in the back." And he says, "Well, were they all dead?" And he says, "Well, you know, some of them were saying they weren't, but you can't, they're politicians, you can't trust them." We're not politicians. You know, it's funny because people, you're going to hear me talk about, if you know me or tonight, you'll hear me talk about the government, and I'm not so fond of him. And people will say, "Well, that's funny, Sheriff, because you're the government." I said, "No, I'm not the government. I'm your county sheriff. My job is to protect the people from the bad guys and from government overreach." And I can assure you that we have 15 really good sheriffs in this state who understand that and who believe that and who work hard for you, the people. Because like you talked about earlier, it's we the people. That's truly where the power is. I want to talk about 4 things tonight that I think are very key to us in law enforcement and in the state of Arizona and in this country. The first of them is, I was talking about it on the campaign trail all along. Towards the end, Martha McSally would have me come out and speak at these little fundraisers and stuff, and a few other politicians. I felt like the monkey, you know, that bangs the cymbals together. Like they just had me come out to speak to raise money. I never got any of it. Didn't go into my campaign. But I enjoyed going around speaking because I enjoy talking about these things. But I talked about one key thing. And when I was fortunate enough to go to the White House Christmas party this last year, probably my last invite, at least for the next 4 years. But I went there, and we had a meeting before the Christmas party, and we were meeting with some of President Trump's cabinet people. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about immigration, which I'll talk about. But then he said at the very end, he says, "What I see is going to be the challenge that you as sheriffs will face over the next 4, 8, 12 years is the rule of law." The rule of law is what is under attack here in this country. Now, the rule of law is what's made America great for so long. There are other countries with constitutions. There are other countries that are democracies, but they are not as strong as America because they lack the strong rule of law. We are not an anarchist country. We are a country where we establish, as people, we establish laws and rules that we want all of us to live by, and that's how we have a safe community and a functioning society. But now we have our own government and politicians trying to undo the rule of law. Now you have this idiotic idea of, I think we're good saying idiotic in the church. Yeah. You have this idiotic notion of defunding the police.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, and don't raise your hand if you do agree with it, but who here agrees with defunding the police?
Nope.
Good, nobody raised their hand. Because they would have caught you out in the parking lot. Defunding the police is ridiculous. If you really wanted to fix the issues that people have with law enforcement, which honestly, I think we get a bad rap this year because of the actions of a few, they threw a blanket on the entire career, the entire profession, which is unfair. That'd be no different than the sheriff-eye in impugning an entire race of people because one person of a race went and robbed a bank, and we started calling them all bank robbers. That's no different. So it's not fair to our profession. Now, we'll be the first to tell you you can always do the job better. And we're always looking for ways to do that job better as administrators and law enforcement. Now, the way to do this is not by defunding the police. It's actually through more funding. I can guarantee you, if I ask Sheriff Shepard if he has enough bodies, or any of the other sheriffs in this state, if you have enough deputies, the answer is going to be no. We're doing the best we can with the resources that we have. Now, that is government's primary responsibility, is to protect you. Through the military, through law enforcement, through your community, that's what the primary responsibility is. You hear these people talking about, well, we need all these different social programs. Well, I got a news flash for you. Most of those social programs already exist. The fact that you don't know about them or they don't know about them shows you how useless those programs are. Why would you throw more good money after bad money? The reason we need more is, A, we don't get to train near as much as we want to. People ask me all the time, Sheriff, do you guys train as much as you want? No. The answer is no. I don't have enough staffing. I can't take enough guys off the road to train them. And then you talk about this specific units or specialty squads. You know, if you don't have enough guys to cover patrol, you don't have enough to go out and do the specialty squads. The guys that round up the bad guys, the sex offenders, those types of things. The other thing is if you don't have enough staffing, and when you talk about defunding, let's say I have a deputy and he walks out the door and he has a little argument with his wife because he can't pay a bill because he makes $2,500 take home a month. And he walks out the door and the first call he goes to is a 1-year-old who's just been molested by his stepdad. What kind of mental state do you think that deputy's in? Do you send him home? Do you get to send him home? I don't get to send those guys home. They have to stay out there doing their job. And let's say the next call is a suicide because they're fed up with COVID and everything, and now it's a suicide, which are up, by the way. Now, where I should be able to send that deputy home to get some peer support to deal with this so that it doesn't cause him problems later on, I can't because I don't have enough staffing to cover the calls, the beats. So when you talk about defunding, it's actually the opposite. You should be talking about, if you really want to make law enforcement better, let's fund the police more. And I'm just going to put in a quick plug. If you want to talk to your legislators about something, tell them to change the retirement back to 20 years. This is ridiculous. It's extremely difficult for us to hire because the retirement program has turned what used to be an honorable profession into a job. And it is a job with these kids who are predispositioned to already want to just come in for a few years anyway. You train them and then you put them on a night shift and they're like, I'm going to go do something else. And now they've got it as a 401k, so you know what they can do? They can take their money after 3 or 5 years and go into the private sector and take their 401k. And then we just spent all that time holding on. So if you talk to your legislators, let's get the retirement put back to 20 years. They deserve it. And that's all we're going to be able to continue to hire. But that's a side note. I want to roll into the second thing. So the second issue, and I don't want to dwell on negative things because I subscribe to, I hope at the end of the night I'm going to give you hope. Napoleon Bonaparte, who even though he failed, had some great quotes. And one of his quotes was, leaders are dealers in hope. So at the end of tonight, I hope I give you some hope. But I am going to talk about a sensitive subject that I think needs to be addressed. And that is the sexual predators, especially amongst our children, that exist. So when you talk about defunding our police, you're talking about eliminating positions like that. Now, I'm a fairly decent-sized agency, third largest in the state of Arizona. How many sex crimes detectives, child crimes do you think I have?
2.
10? I have 1.
I said 2.
Oh, 2? I have 1.
Okay.
I was like, 10? Sweet. I have 1. His job. Now, if we put out an ad once that was a girl saying, I'm bored. It was just a Disney character saying she was a 14-year-old girl bored. In 1 hour, we had 60 men respond to that. Now, you don't have that here because you guys have a great sheriff. But we deal with that down there. And you're dealing with it here too. The sexual predators. Now, in the infinite wisdom of all these politicians and people, they wanted to keep our kids at home all year. On computers, at the mercy of these sexual predators. Their kids are no match for these people. How many kids do you think went missing last year?
Too many.
Total, you're talking state or are you taking that?
Federal, per the FBI.
50,000.
Okay, 50. Somebody said 800,000. Last year, the FBI had it's 2019, 424,000 missing children. But NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, estimates that it's closer to 600 to 800,000 children. The year before that, it was 421,000. We shut this country down when we had 15,000 COVID deaths. We had 424,000 children go missing the previous year, and we didn't do a dadgum thing about it. This is a problem in this country. The amount of pornography, child pornography online, they can shut our conservative voices off social media. You can't tell me you can't turn that child pornography off. The fact is, they're not focused on that. They're focused on other things, and instead of protecting our children, protecting our communities. So when you go through things, and when you're voting for people, and when you're talking to your elected officials, this needs to be something you talk about. What are you doing for our children? What are you doing to protect our children? The crimes, sex crimes on whole, we can't even deal with. We're so busy dealing with these low-level ones, the ones that are out after our children, which, by the way, I can go out, put an ad out, hook them, and within 2 hours, they'll come and meet us. Within 2 hours. But then, I have the one deputy, and what does he have to do now? He has to write a search warrant on his phone, he has to write a search warrant on his computer, his house. That's a lot of work. So while he's doing all that, 59 more sexual predators that were responded in an hour are still out there. We just don't have enough resources. So when you talk about resources, we need more resources to be able to do these kind of things. So let's get off that subject. The other issue is immigration. Who here thinks that's a problem? Yeah. It is absolutely a problem. I'm going to be on Fox and Friends in, 8 hours. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I do not expect any of you to be up. All right? I'm sure they'll replay it throughout the day. The immigration is the hot topic right now. I'm telling you, as a sheriff that is down there, we're not even on the border. We're 60 miles off the border. This is a crisis. I mean, the fact that they want to continue to not say that it's a crisis is ridiculous. And you know who created this? It already existed, but who's really thrown fuel on this fire? Our current administration. The current president and his administration are responsible for this, and then they pretend like they're not. They want to blame, which is horrible leadership, to blame other people. They want to blame the previous administration. They want to come up with all these excuses. Today I was on a call with Pima County, and it was HHS, FEMA, and DEMA. they're talking about all these people coming here, and there wasn't any talk about what we do to stop it. It was all like what we do to take care of the people once they get here. I finally just hung up. I was disgusted with it. So I just hung up with the call. It is a major problem. We right now, in the last 2 months, we had about 40 vehicle pursuits and bailouts, which means that we pursued somebody driving between 50 and 100 miles per hour down our streets, and then as soon as they stop, they all bail out of the vehicle. We have had 40 of those. They're almost one a day right now. Sometimes we have 2 in a day. We had one that wrecked the other day. We chased the guys out in the desert. We went back to the car because we thought it was empty and found some lady crammed in behind the back seat. We had 12 Guatemalans bail out, or 12 people bail out and left a 16-year-old Guatemalan behind. This isn't about politics anymore. When you talk to people who are of a different party, don't engage in the immigration talk, okay? It's not about immigration anymore. This is about human trafficking and drug trafficking in this country. The cartel controls every single bit of it. They make as much money off of bodies as they do off of drugs. They control it all. So when we're talking about this, it should be talking about human trafficking, drug trafficking. I'll tell you why. Because I can say to these people, it doesn't matter what your politics are. If you care about human rights, you should absolutely care about border security. Because the cartel are abusing people's rights on a daily basis. They rape the women. They use the children as pawns. They extort the men. They force them to carry drugs. And that's a whole other thing. We're talking about the bodies. We had 49 apprehensions in Pinal County in one day last week. Last Wednesday. We're averaging over 20 apiece right now. I don't have the resources for that. And we're out there doing this every day. The drugs. What do you guys know about the drugs?
Horrible.
It's terrible.
They killing my grandson.
Everybody's family's been affected. You know, and that's what's horrible is because it used to be that it didn't affect everybody. Now, you hear it right here. My son has had an issue with drugs. Everybody's families, nobody's immune from this. And yet we're perfectly okay with letting the cartel just continue. I know we're not, but it's speaking in general terms. We're okay as a country with allowing this to come into our country. Now, here's the problem, is they're shifting away from the crop-based drugs into more synthetics. Now, your crop-based drugs are your opiates, because it comes from the poppy seeds, or your heroin, those types of things, and marijuana. Partly because states continue to legalize it. Is there anybody here that's naive enough to think that the cartel just bowed out because we legalized marijuana? There's estimates that the cartel still controls about 80% of all legal marijuana drug trade in this country. All we did was make it legal for them to grow it and sell it. So they're moving away from these and they're shifting into the synthetics, which are your methamphetamine and your fentanyl. Methamphetamine and fentanyl, they can produce 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They can produce such large quantities of it. Let me give you an idea how large quantities of it. First of all, I'm going to tell you how much fentanyl, but how much fentanyl does it take to kill you? Do you know?
Like a grain of sand. It's really, really tiny.
Yeah, if you took 3 grains of salt from a salt shaker and put that on your finger, if you had that much fentanyl, it would kill you. So knowing that, I think it was a year ago, we had a lady we stopped on the I-10 freeway. We stopped the driver, and the lady was in the front seat, dressed as a nun, had a veil over her face, had the Bible on her lap. Deputy starts doing the investigation, and he ends up finding 8 pounds of granular fentanyl underneath her dress. My wife hates this joke because I always say it, but the joke is Spanx will hold anything in. But 8 pounds of fentanyl, that'll kill hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. She had 8 pounds of fentanyl on there. In 2018, so now what they're doing is they're producing these M30 fentanyl pills. They're these little blue M30 fentanyl pills. Because there's much less of a stigma for us as Americans to take a pill as opposed to shooting up. The average person, wherever I go, I usually say this, there is typically somebody in the room who's addicted to prescription pills. It is much easier for them to take a prescription pill when their doctor stops prescribing it. Well, these little blue M30 fentanyl pills, the cartel's punching them out for $1 and selling them here for $20 to $30 in America. In 2018, Pinal County Sheriff's Office, not Casa Grande, not DPS, not Border Patrol, not any of that, we had 0 fentanyl seizures of the M30 fentanyl pills. In 2019, we had 677 pills. Any guess what we had last year? Over 200,000 M30 fentanyl pills. You do the math of what that increase is in. Methamphetamines, there's counties, my county, 300-400% increase in methamphetamines, and we're not even a meth county. You get into some of these states like Ohio and some of these other places where meth is the drug of choice, they're seeing 3,000-4,000% increases. These drugs are not designed to stay in Arizona, nor are the people. These are filtering throughout this entire country. So we take that very serious when we get down there doing the work, trying to stop these people from coming in because they're going to communities all across. And they're affecting every one of our loved ones. This is the kind of drugs that are coming in when we allow this. So when these guys want to think it's cute and just try to figure out, they try to dance around and do verbal judo of how this isn't a crisis, it chaps my hide to know because I've seen the destruction that these drugs cause in our communities. And they want to talk about more and more programs. We're not in the business of doing reactive policing. It's not good. We need proactive policing. We need to stop it at the border. I was in Miami last year or whatever, and I was speaking at a conference, and it was all mostly social workers. So you can imagine we probably didn't share the same politics. So I get up there, and they're talking about all these different programs and everything, and I get up there, and one of the first things I say when I start to speak is, that's fine that we're doing stuff to try to take care of our people, but it's also reckless to ignore how we can stop it. And that is by stopping the flow of it into this country, reducing the flow. But we as a society, we don't want to touch on those. We don't want to talk about the hard things, especially now in this cancel culture. So we really need to hold our elected officials responsible. We need to let our voices be heard. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we can do at the very end. But it is definitely an issue. Immigration is an issue. Drugs are an issue in our communities. The last thing I want to talk about is the Constitution. Who here feels pretty good about the Constitution's position right now? Yeah. Look, there's no doubt that the Constitution is a divine document with God's stamp of approval on it.
Amen.
This is a document that I truly believe will withstand all the pressure. But it is hanging by a thread. There's no doubt. How many of you, and when I talk to people, they're like, well, I don't know, you might be exaggerating. It's like, okay. How many of you didn't go to church every Sunday last year? Majority of us. Some churches stayed open. Kudos to them. Most churches did not. I had a church in our community back in April when the governor came out and said, hey, we're gonna extend this into May and whatever. And I was like, and then he said, we're gonna cite and arrest anybody who opens their business and stuff. And I was like, no, we're not. All last year, did he talk to us one time as a governor? Not a single time as sheriffs. Yet he would continue to push these things and tell you that you were going to get cited or arrested if you open these things. And so I was like, no, we're not. I remember this lady calls me and she's like, well, you're the only one who won't do it. And I said, that's not true. I said, all the sheriffs and all these police officers aren't going to do it. I'm the only one that's either has the guts to say it or too dumb to know the difference. That's the only difference. But we stood against it, But during that time, I forgot what I was going to say. Yes, thank you. I had one of our pastors say, hey, look, my parishioners are depressed. They're frustrated. They don't know what to do. Everybody's on edge, and we want to do an Easter service. And I said, absolutely, go ahead. I got you. I got your back. And I said, but I want to forewarn you, the pressure is immense. You will feel some immense pressure, but don't worry, I'm with you. So a day or two later, sure enough, he puts it out on social media, and everybody comes out. The social media, or the media sources, their own parishioners also, and the media starts coming out and interviewing. And they interview them, and they interview me, and they're like, well, what do you say about this? And I'm like, I say, good, it's their First Amendment right. The free exercise thereof. So, 2 days go by, it goes to Friday, they're getting ready to do another interview. 2 minutes before we start the interview, he tells me, so what do you think about the pastor canceling the service? And I was like, I'm disappointed. So I called the pastor after and said, hey, what happened? He's like, you told us, but we underestimated the pressure. And I said, no, I get it. Like, trust me, it's a lot of pressure. But, that is an example of us not being able to practice our free exercise of religion. How about the right to free speech? I mean, most of us don't feel like we can speak freely. I do. It gets me in trouble all the time. I was telling somebody, a friend once told me, it doesn't do any good to have a good fastball if you never throw it. So I throw fastballs. And most of us need to start throwing fastballs, because we can't let them take away our free speech. They're not physically taking it. We're willingly giving it, because we don't want the pressure that comes with it. The right to peaceably assemble has been adulterated in this country. The Founding Fathers did not intend for it to encompass what we saw last year. That was not what it was. We saw a lot of things that shouldn't have happened. And even on January 6th, I think there was a lot of us are just uncomfortable with people going into I was 100% okay with people being in D.C. That's our right. That's your First Amendment right. But I don't ever condone violence. And a lot of people are frustrated because they feel like we have no more recourse, and that is not true. There are a lot of recourses still. We may not like the situation we're in, but I promise you, the Constitution and the law and these things there are still a lot of recourses, peaceful recourses for us. The Constitution was not designed to stack the deck against it. Either two things will happen. One, it'll break the system, or two, the system will right itself. Because I believe in the Constitution and the divinity and the sanctity of this country and America and the Founding Fathers, I believe that it will right itself. But it needs the people to do it. I got a newsflash for you. This country's not going to be saved in Washington. It's going to be saved by enlightened men and women of this country who love and cherish freedom. People like you guys. That's who's going to save it. People who refuse to back down to this bullying tactics that we're seeing. I've taken a few different steps. I'm rallying sheriffs together. I started getting some sheriffs from across the country and slowly I'm going to recruit all the sheriffs in Arizona, hopefully, called Protect America Now. It's sheriffs getting together, standing up for the rule of law. Thank you. Standing up for the rule of law, standing up against bad policies, and standing for the Constitution. What we're going to do is we're going to support one another. Just like a pack of wolves would separate out a sheep from the herd and make their job easy, that's what they're trying to do to us. And we can't allow that. We've got to stand together as sheriffs, whether it's us showing up to another state to say, not only do we support our sheriff and stand against what you're doing, we're going to bring the weight of our organization with us. Unfortunately, that takes money. Protect America Now. And if you go to protectamericanow.com, I did get a phone call from a lady today from Protect Americans Now, and they got a few of our checks. So, protectamericanow.com. And we're going to be working together as sheriffs. Sheriffs are your last line of defense in this country. We don't work for anybody but you. People ask me, well, who's your boss? And I'm like, I don't have a boss. Well, no, but who tells you, like, who do you report to? Like the governor? I'm like, no, not the governor. Well, who do you report to? And I was like, I report to the people. I represent the people of this community. There is power in that. We talked about it at the beginning of this. The power is in the people, and the sheriff represents you, the people. I have had to stand against some of these COVID things nonstop last year. Then I got COVID, and then they butchered me across the country in the media. But honestly, it gave me a bigger voice. Then I could run my mouth more because I had it. I was looking to build the positive. But there are a lot of good things happening in this country. These folks are going to undo themselves with what they're doing. What we have to do is we have to stay calm. Stay focused on the task at hand. I love mixed martial arts and fighting and stuff. And the way you win the fight is to control the pace and get somebody out off their game. Get them away from what their strengths are. That's what they've done to us. You have to take a step back, control your breathing, control yourself, so that you can get back to implementing your game plan. And that's what we have to do as American people, is get back to implementing our game plan. I know you feel like your voice isn't heard when you send a letter or make a phone call. I promise you, Sheriff can tell you, we get these phone calls and these letters. It matters. If you give them enough, it does matter. You may not hear it, you may not ever see it, but I promise you, these politicians, it matters to them. You got to continue to do it. Even if it's futile, we don't raise the white flag here. In my book, there's a chapter, and one of the chapters is, it's not a fight until you meet resistance. Well, we're in a fight. We've met resistance. Now we're going to show what kind of patriots we truly are. What kind of Americans are you now that you've met resistance? Because we've lived in a great country for a long time. We've been blessed. We've been blessed with beautiful homes and air conditioning and cars. And I mean, we complain if our AC our car is not blowing cold enough. You know, these are things these are luxuries. Yet we have gotten soft as Americans. And now, you know what? We've got to pull up our bootstraps, and it's going to be a little bit of a fight. But the only way to get through that is to keep your wits about you and to stand strong and to stand with one another. It's not easy to do it alone, which is why we gather together as sheriffs and why you need to gather together as community members to stand for these things. Has anybody read the book, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen? If you haven't, got an assignment after you read American Sheriff, which you can download on Kindle, you can get it on Amazon. So after you complete American Sheriff, read As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It's free for most, I think on Apple Books, and I think it's free. But As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Great book. It's only like 50 pages. You can read it every couple weeks, which I highly recommend. But in there, at the very end, and I'm going to end with this quote, and then we'll open it up for questions. In the end, it says, "Keep your hand firmly upon the helm of thought. In the bark of your soul reclines the commanding master. He does but sleep. Wake him. Self-control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power. Say unto your heart, peace be still." And I say to you, peace be still. America's going to be good. We just have to stand together and work together to against these things. So thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
going to, like I said, if we can get that other mic back, Shauna. Okay.
And real quick, while you're bringing up the mic, if I could just say, one thing I didn't talk about is the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
This is under attack. I'm not going to speak for Adam, nor am I trying to put him in a predicament here, but there is a lot of power with the sheriff. I've already started a citizens posse, because if I need to, I'll make everybody part of my posse to maintain those Second Amendment rights. So we'll do what we have to do.
Okay, and there is a petition going around town, if you haven't seen it, to make Gila County a Second Amendment sanctuary county. So, oh, there it is. How about that? Okay, so listen, after the meeting, guys, we're going to be at the back, and there's been to sign up to get your Tea Party email so you know what's going on. Oh, there's Janet. She's our secretary. She was a little bit late, but she's on our board. Okay, so anyhow, so what we're going to do, we're going to have the two mics, and you guys can share this one. For those of you who do not know Adam Shepard, he has been coming to our Tea Party meeting for the past 8 or 10 years, long time. So he's one of us, definitely. And so you can field a question to either one, but I first want to give this mic, or give that mic, to Adam, so Adam can just kind of expound on a little bit about what's going on in Gila County as far as the immigration goes. Are we seeing a lot more people coming through town?
Immigration, and I kind of like to think of Sheriff Lamb's County as kind of a filter. Because, if he doesn't catch them, then they get to me. So we have a pretty steady showing of immigration coming through the county. We catch it the exact same way you were described a little bit earlier. We might have a traffic stop or something like that, and then of course, the minute the car comes to a stop, boom, everybody scatters into the woods. A lot of places to hide, of course, but
Do him first.
it just continues. It's steady. As we know now, there's quite a mass of folks gathering at the border, thinking because they were promised or thought they were, that they would be let in. And of course, from what I understand, it really made the coyotes, the folks that bring them across, pretty rich recently, and gave them an opportunity to make a lot of money on this. What folks that argue that point with you don't seem to understand is that once those people get across the border and into this country, they are beholden. That's not the end of the story. They are indentured to whoever brought them up until that debt is paid off. Well, I can tell you right now that in most cases that debt is never paid off. So they're indentured to that person for the rest of their working life. And that doesn't seem to me humanitarian. If somebody's trying to argue to you that immigration into this country illegally is humanitarian, it's ridiculous. Because those folks owe their souls to somebody for getting them here. Believe it or not, that's a fact. It's not speculation. So the more humane thing would be to do is to try to help them fix their situations wherever it is they come from, right?
Amen.
Which is what the United States is very generous towards and has been for many, many years, trying to correct the inequities. When you go up against these corrupt organizations and these corrupt governments, though, it's always a struggle. But, people have to fight for themselves. I mean, it's been a few hundred years now, but we had to fight too, right? So, okay, so what is kind of current, and we had this discussion. By the way, I'd like to at least kind of point out a couple of my staff members. Of course, some of you met Matt as you were coming in today. We had a big... Matt Penny is our undersheriff. We had a big intro on him back when he was appointed back in January. So if you want to go to our page and kind of scroll back a little bit, you can find out a lot of information about Matt. Matt's a remarkable individual. Grew up here in Payson, has a very distinguished military career, and now I consider a very distinguished career with the sheriff's office as well. Also got Sarah White. A lot of you know Sarah because if you call me and you ask for something, I usually refer you to her because she's got, you know, the computer and all of her finger on everything that goes on in the office. But what we were discussing and the other day was, okay, so there's some flags flying around town in some of the communities about, and I can't say the word because we're in polite mixed company, but it rhymes with buck, which is a male deer, the current administration, right? So we got a call that this flag was flying in somebody's yard. What are you going to do about it? Sheriff, I want you to go take care of that. And what did I say?
First Amendment.
Said, yeah, you know, your children should be shielded from things like that, and you may have to explain to them. Of course, every phone that they've got or every computer says the same thing, right? So you're better off just explaining that kind of things to your children. Said, no. Now, we understand that some of them have come down. I would imagine there was a little bit of peer pressure. But, yeah, you know, you still have a right in this country to speak your mind, and we will defend that, just as we do all of your other rights, because that's what we're here to do, and that's what a lot about what Sheriff Lamb talked about. So that's what's going on. That's some of the things that have come up, and I guess if we're ready to take off with the Q&A, let's do it.
Okay, we have this gentleman right here first.
Thank you for coming up here, Sheriff Lamb. It's a pleasure to meet you. I got to vote for you your first time running down in Pinal County. I lived in Maricopa at the time. I want to know, it's a nice hat that you have on there. Any chance that we can see that thing tossed into the ring for governor?
You know what? I appreciate the question. I'm going to be honest with you. Here's how the governor works. We can only run for another office in the last year of our term. If not, you have to resign to run. So to run for governor, I would probably have to step away, or Sheriff Shepard would have to step away by about September of this year. Unless you're wealthy and you can support your family for 15 months, it is hard. You can raise the money, but you can't use campaign money to support your family. So this is why you continue to have wealthy people in office, is because they're the only ones that can afford to not have a job and go around the state for 15 months. When we run, I mean, fortunately now we're incumbents, but even when we didn't run, you know, luckily I own my own business, so it is extremely difficult. I appreciate the vote of confidence, but I would say that I love being sheriff. I have no desire to leave this job, but I'm a patriot. I don't know. I've learned long ago that what I want, what God wants, don't always line up. But I'm just going to keep doing my job to the best of my ability and controlling what I can control. And hope and pray that good candidates for governor come along that don't pull up lame on us the last term.
All righty, so let me remind everybody that they were going from one side of the room to the other. So now we're going to do Doug, because he was the first person here. You have your question? And then we'll go over there, and we'll go back and forth, and Shauna's running the other mic.
So we're being goaded into having civil war in this country, which we do not want. What is your position and recommendation on the constitutional militia?
I'm 100%. I mean, the Constitution defines that you should have a militia. I try to communicate with our local militias all the time. In the Phoenix, Maricopa County area, I try to communicate with them all the time. I started the Citizens Posse to give people more education to kind of temper that anger and that frustration that people were feeling in this country. And make no mistake about it, what you saw on the other side is also frustration. They just don't realize who they should be frustrated at. The politicians and the media are trying to direct that frustration towards us and law enforcement because we're an easy target. But the fact of the matter is, both people on the far, your Antifa and all them, are also frustrated with the current state of this. Now, we may have different ideas as to what we're frustrated about, but the bottom line is both are frustrated. I continue to talk about, I continue to hope and pray that we can do this peacefully and rectify the situation. But I mean, a militia is well within the Constitution, and I just always ask that, you know, they be peaceful and we work together on trying to do the best we can to protect our communities and our state.
So that side?
I was just going to say something on that. If you don't think we have one, threaten to come with a busload of people into town. Right? If you don't think we have some folks that would turn out armed, right? Say, oh, we're going to bring some people up there, we're going to protest, and we're going to burn some of your businesses. What happened?
Not in our town.
And I just want to say, the Constitution of the state of Arizona requires us to suppress any affrays, insurrections, riots that come to the knowledge of the sheriff. It also says that as the sheriff, we can command as many inhabitants of the county as we deem necessary to fix the problem. So that is the beautiful thing and power of the sheriff. So.
Good thing we have a cell phone number.
That's a good thing you do.
Thank you so much, Sheriff Lamb, coming up. We appreciate you coming into our neck of woods. The first thing that you talked about was education. It was about the kids. And being an educator, I was there when the Attorney General demanded in a way that because of the internet, we had to, again, teach about sexual predators. And that was really hard because, again, it's sad that we had to do that inside the schools. But going in on that of education is so important. And you talked about resources, about, again, you guys can't both everywhere. You can't retain the people who have funding, and I think it's the education. The schools, these kids have no passion to be somebody and have that loyalty and those worth ethics to be what you're looking for. And I think that's something we need to do. I know, again, education, I'm running into because I founded, I'm the president of the Northern Gila County Community Drug Task Force here in Northern Gila County. And what our group is trying to do is trying to get into the school system. So my question really is, it's very hard to get into schools. Very hard. See, you're shaking your head. Because it's like, I'm sorry, they're ransoming our kids. And they won't allow us to get in there to help them understand and educate them and the parents. Prevention of like fentanyl, because thanks to our sheriff here, we did have that big bust, about a good couple months ago, and that was also some of our narcotics and the gang-related task force. But education, how in your county do you guys help to try again to get in the school systems to educate the children and the parents? And it's sad because the ones that are doing the drugs, those are the ones you seem to not be able to get. So how's that out-of-box thinking?
Yeah, great question, because we don't have school resource officers like we used to, or there used to exist. The way we've been doing it is just taking every opportunity to go to read to the kids. I was reading Dr. Seuss on last Friday. Give Dr. Seuss to the kids, of course, the internet loved that. We just continue to get into there. I also do a sheriff's redirection program where if kids get in trouble, instead of running them through the system, through the county attorney and the courts, we have one opportunity to the deputies can put them in my sheriff redirection program, which I personally teach. I talk about, we do goal setting and planning, digital media, social media, sexting, the dangers of it, drugs and alcohol, and we do a career night. And you should see these kids. We've had about almost 100 kids come through the program. I think we've had 1 or 2 reoffend. Tremendous successful program. We make it good horse therapy for the community service, but a lot of it is, positive interaction with law enforcement. There are a lot of children, and this is no knock on any single mom out there, because I wouldn't wish that on anybody, because that's a tough job, parenting, let alone with 2 people, let alone 1. But there are a lot of kids that lack a male role model in their home too. And so we've tried to hopefully fill some of that as well. Positive role models, positive interaction with law enforcement, positive feedback nonstop. It's not going to be easy. The last thing I'll say, and I'll give it to Sheriff, is run for school board.
Yay!
School board need good people on there. I know people don't think about school board. You think of Senate, you think of Congress, you think of all these things. school boards are very impactful in your community. The schools that are not back in session have to do with school boards. That's who it is. So I would say run for school boards, and then just getting in as many. COVID has got that very restricted. You're going to have a hard time as a regular group trying to get into a school right now. But I know the sheriff, speaking for him, we probably take every opportunity we can to get into these schools.
Absolutely. One of my platforms has always been to keep officers in school, even though we do have limited resources, like the sheriff alluded to a little bit earlier. And because you want the kids to have that positive relationship with police officers before they go out into the world and have negative relationships with them. If they don't know that there's two sides to the coin, then they're only going to know the one side, and it's just going to get worse. So we keep people in schools, we keep our officers teaching them about the consequences of the things they do. Obviously you can't save everybody. We try our best, but at least when they leave our instructional courses, they know. And this is the county schools. The inner city schools are taken care of by the police departments. But at least they know when they get out of there what the consequences would be, and I think that is kind of helps redirect them into maybe not want to go that route, and try to be a little bit more productive citizen. That's what we're all going for, right? That's the goal, anyway. So, thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Jeff.
Gentlemen, I stand in awe of your patriotism and your commitment to our community. You are wonderful examples of wonderful human beings that I always read about in the history books, who stood up to oppression, who stood up to people that would go ahead and dominate our community, and I just want to applaud you, sir. You guys are wonderful. With the advent of the current administration and the way that they are proceeding and doing things, oftentimes we talk about the social contract, the contract between the people and the government. And when that contract is broken, oftentimes we, who are normal law-abiding citizens, don't want to become involved. And so because of that, we need leaders like yourselves to go ahead and stand up to this and help us through these things. It's very important.
Thank you.
I would like to ask you this. In Maricopa County, there had been accusations of vast voter fraud. And I'd like to know, is there any way that a county sheriff can become involved in bringing the people who are the supervisors of that particular county to some type of an arrangement to be able to figure out what the hell is going on?
That's a great question. And I don't know that the county sheriff could have compelled them any more than what they've already been trying to do. In all fairness, I'm glad I wasn't in that position. I did speak with my election department, and they were willing, if somebody would have asked, they were willing to do a forensic on their machines, although they didn't have the dominion. In our county, we understand the importance of maintaining the faith of the people in the voting system, which is completely destroyed right now. So we've got a lot of work to do. I'm hoping that the courts can compel which I think was the proper channel, was to go through the courts, compel those machines to be turned over for a forensic audit. In all honesty, I think the sheriff played it the way he should have and let the courts and that process play out. I think if that system would have failed the people, then it would have been a different story. I don't know if that answers that.
Okay, we have one over on the other side here, and then Pam's next after that.
I'd like to know how many masks we're handing out at the border, or how many are coming through with masks.
The answer to the second question is none of them. And they're not doing any COVID testing either. They'll tell you they are now. They're trying to regroup and because they want everybody to funnel through and give them a little, and they're still not, if you look at, I just read something from the Department of Homeland Security Secretary today, and he says that they're trying to get it to where they can get better at it. But I'm going to tell you right now, all of them that are coming into my county that we're catching haven't been tested. Then Border Patrol's giving them masks, or if we have some, we give them. But yeah, that's one of the big issues. You know, they don't want you to open your business or your kids to go to school, but yeah, we'll just go ahead and open the borders to the south. You can't get on a plane, which is funny because they don't want you to sit next to each other in the terminal and then they pack you in like sardines on the plane.
Okay, here's Pam.
Is there any pressure groups on elected officials in the state, towns, counties to have sanctuary areas?
We're not seeing that right now. You're talking immigration sanctuary?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. We're not talking, I haven't seen that. I think everybody's avoiding that. Even the people who are pro open borders, they're just trying to not, because they're getting hammered right now. And if it wasn't for a media which was 100% complicit with them, they would be getting just trashed right now. But they're still managing to they're doctoring the narrative right now. But I want to say on your Second Amendment, this is just personal. On the advice is not to use the word sanctuary, but to use the word constitutional county or Second Amendment county. I just think it's hypocritical to sometimes say we don't want a sanctuary city for immigration, but we want a sanctuary for this. I think you can use a different term, and I think it's a lot more palatable. Just my 2 cents. I think it'll go over a lot better. And so last March, we became a constitutional Second Amendment county.
So Brad, next.
I don't have a question, but I'd like to share a story about how Sheriff Lamb and I met. When he first ran for sheriff, we didn't know him. We being my employer, who's got a few dollars, and me and my words, didn't know him, so we supported his opponent. But quickly after he won, and then we ended up meeting Sheriff Lamb, and now I can say you're the best thing that happened to Pinal County. So congratulations.
Thank you. And if you want to read it, I actually tell about that in the book, because there was a newsletter in the local utility company, and it went out to like 30,000 people. And it was about how great my opponent was, and like it wasn't trashing me, but it made it sound like I just started eating solid foods like last week. And I will tell you, I had people calling me and they were like, "Oh my gosh, did you see this?" And I was like, "Yes, it's great, isn't it?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I didn't even have to pay for that, and they just put my name in 33,000 homes. That was beautiful."
Just so you know, I wrote that.
I appreciate your honesty.
Okay, here's Lisa.
Thank you very much for being here. Exactly when you do catch the illegal people coming in, exactly what are you doing with those people?
It's a great question, and I'm happy you asked it, I guess. Depends. We caught 35, and Border Patrol wasn't with us, and ICE wouldn't take them, so we released them. Because if I hold on to them longer than an investigatory allotted time, it becomes kidnapping. I don't have probable cause unless they commit a state crime. Because being here in this country is not a state crime, it is a federal crime. I'm not able to enforce federal crime. When I catch 49 and 25 and all of that, that is in conjunction with Border Patrol. Border Patrol is taking them. So you understand how it works. Border Patrol can only hold them for about 72 hours. They have facilities that are temporary housing facilities. You either send them back to the country they came from, or ICE takes them over if there's pending charges, or if they're going to be staying here longer. Once ICE gets them, then they hold on to them for however long. ICE now is not taking a lot of them. So I would say that most of them are probably being released into our communities.
So where are they released? On our side in America or on the Mexican side?
Yes, they are. It's our
So
side.
they're just loose in our country?
Yep, here's what they do. They identify them the best way that they can, which, you know, somebody without any documentation, it's kind of hard to identify who they are, and then they give them a court date. That's what happens. I can tell you that on the previous administration, not a big surprise to you probably, the cooperation between ICE, Border Patrol, and local law enforcement improved almost every year. Did you feel that way too?
100%.
And so we don't know, we're only a few months into this next one, but I think we can speculate that might start cutting off, and we already know that some of those folks have already been reassigned to other, duties in the federal government. So we're still under the yoke of that, as you well know. In this state, they tried years ago to pass a law that gave state officers a little bit more power in immigration. It failed miserably, when it got to the Supreme Court, of course. But so, as Sheriff Lamb said, we can take those folks in for an investigatory period of time. And of course, this is all controlled by the same set of laws that we like when they work for us, and we also have to like it when it doesn't necessarily work for us. And then unless ICE or Border Patrol comes and can pick those folks up and they go through those processes, then absolutely the right, they're released.
And good luck trying to catch a Greyhound bus out of Yuma or Pima County, Tucson. They usually pile them on these buses and send them all throughout the country.
Oh. Okay, do we have a person over there? Okay, next person.
Okay, I've got many questions, like usual, but I'm trying to point this in the right direction. One of the things that confuses me is it took us 2 years of being vetted to come to America. We had to have the credentials, we had to have the shots, we had to have the examinations, mental evaluations, the whole 9 yards.
The legal way.
Yeah. And one of the things when I went to school to learn about the government. When I took my citizenship test, one of the questions they asked me is, have you ever claimed to be an American citizen? And I said, what? Do you know that they could have denied me my citizenship if that answer would have been yes? So here's the thing. With everything that we go through, there are a lot of people in this world who want to come here, who need to come here, because they do need asylum. My family, before we came to America, we also lived in a Muslim country that we had to escape from. We seek asylum to go back to our homeland of Holland. So when we came here, we were safe, because this is America. This stuff can't happen. It's happening. I get so confused. I just lost a friend of 23 years, not to COVID, but to the idea. She's thinking there is nothing wrong here, that we have freedom of speech, and all this stuff, abuse against conservatives, is not happening. I couldn't even go there. So, you're talking about contacting the politicians, okay? It's our right to be armed, but how do you change the minds of the media? Who do you contact? How do you get them to stop this idiocy? You know, you can write your politicians. What can you do with the media? And those brain-dead people who think that they're going to get something for nothing.
Well, there's a simple answer to that. Turn off your cable. I mean, it really is they're making their money off of the fact that we're paying the bill every month. And the reality is, if you stop paying that, they'll tank. A lot of these their viewership is so low right now. Advertising dollars have now left all the media, and really there's no place to go back to. DirecTV, Dish, all of those are struggling because everybody's getting tired of it. So we're the ones that keep feeding it by paying for the cable, which that gives them the money, and the advertisers keep paying that. So
I noticed another thing that has kind of come up after a lot of the media kind of went anti-conservative, right, and even kicked a few conservative commenters off of their platforms, right? That there are some conservative social medias now starting up. They're not very old yet, and they're not as well known, of course, as the big ones, but they're starting to, and we need to be not only supporting but having our wishes known, where that type of a message is accepted and welcomed, and so that there's something going forward to fight all of that anti-conservatism that's going on in the rest of the platforms. Like he said, all you got to do is cut off their supply of money. What's Zuckerberg's the third or fourth richest person in the world? Third? Yeah, I know that. They switch every once in a while because one of them makes a little more money than the other one that month. But so obviously, money drives the whole dang thing. I mean, it's not the idealism. It's not anything else. It's the friggin' money, and that's the only place that you can cut those things off at.
For those of you who watched Live PD, I'm actually working on a project right now, which I hope to kick off in May. It's called American Sheriff, and we're going to be sending camera crews to sheriff's offices across the country. And we're going to basically do what Live PD was doing, except it won't be live, but you'll still have and we're going to put out about 10 videos a week. It'll be $5 a month. And hopefully you'll come on and support. That's how we're going to support law enforcement and continue to get the good message out there and not let the media change that and shut off that voice, which is what they did. So keep an eye out that for AmericanSheriff.com in May. If you go there now, you're just going to find my book, which is fine too. But in May, we'll have that kicked off. We're working on getting the filming in April, and we'll be back in May.
Everybody gets their first question before anybody gets a second question. Go ahead, Don.
I didn't have a question.
Oh, wait.
Sure.
Wait, Don, we're over here.
Okay, so I have a question for each of you. Sheriff Shepard, you said that you try to help some of the aliens. You said that there's a program of some kind to help them change their mind or get them educated.
Oh, I think it was two different discussions. Yeah, the aliens that we catch, like the sheriff said, we call the federal government, which is our next step, and if they will either send somebody out to deal with the situation, or they'll tell us no, we don't have anybody today, and that's the only two answers that we always give.
Okay, and they all speak Spanish?
We have interpreters.
Okay.
So we can at least kind of understand what they're trying to get at in most cases.
I'm just wondering if they could, if you kind of feel that they are decent people, that you give them in Spanish the 28 principles of freedom as outlined by Cleon Skousen.
That's not a bad idea. I wouldn't know how to translate that into Spanish, but...
Well, no, you wouldn't, but you could get a good Spanish speaker and go away with it.
Well, and I want to back up on something that you mentioned. I'm not saying that these are bad, that these are all bad people. Most of the time, if we catch a vehicle, one or two of the occupants are the ones that are profiting from that activity. The rest of the folks are just, they paid their money and they were promised a better life, and the grass is always greener. Somebody told me today that the grass is greener where you water it, not on the other side of the fence. I wish that we did have the time. Of course, we have very little bit of time interaction with these folks.
Yes, of course.
To kind of make them understand that, freedom's the way to go, and it should be the way that they're trying to go forward, instead of just supporting their corrupt government and all of these large, cartels run Mexico. I hope you all know that. If you don't, just read some. Well, that might be true. But, it's not because, when you go to these towns, and we read reports about this all the time, about the type of things that are going on in Mexico proper, the people support these people, these cartel guys, and why do you think they do that?
Because they get shot if they don't.
That's one reason. What's the other reason? Thank you. We've brought it up several times. Did I get even close?
Well, I liked your comment about grass grows greener if you water it. So their knowledge would be increased if you water their brains.
You're absolutely right.
Well,
Maybe we can make up a card that's got that on it.
Yeah, why do we have freedom in this country? Okay, Sheriff Lamb, Can you tell me what is the difference between your organization and Sheriff Mack's?
Sheriff Mack's organization is Constitutional Sheriffs Police Officers Association. Protect America Now is all going to be, you can join as a supporter, as a member, but it's going to be the executive board are all current sheriffs, and so is all of our, we'll have a bunch of member sheriffs as well. That's the main difference. Most of his are, there are people that are current sheriffs, like I've been a member of the CSPOA joined back before I became sheriff. So there's a lot of people that are members, but that doesn't necessarily make them all sheriffs. We are actually sheriffs going out and doing it. We're actually elected officials. We still carry that strong voice. And Sheriff Mack's doing a great job. He's been out there a ton lately, so. And just real quick, on somebody coming here, there's a lot of good people that get DUIs too, but it's still against the law. Coming here illegally is still against the law. And if Congress doesn't like it, they need to fix it. And probably the biggest frustrating thing is what we're seeing is sheer laziness right now from the president. Because he has the Senate and the Congress and is not passing laws the way laws are supposed to be passed. And instead he's signing executive orders. It's lazy, it's reckless, and there's a reason why it's supposed to go through the House and the Senate so that we avoid situations like we're in now.
I got a new question over here. Okay. There you go.
Yeah, the main thing when you become president and when you say I do, the main thing the president's job is supposed to do to protect our borders and domestic and abroad. Why are these students talking about impeaching Biden for not protecting our borders?
And they are talking about it. It's just the media doesn't want to share that message. I'll tell you right now, when you talk about reinventing something and reinventing America, make no mistake about it, you got to destroy it before you can reinvent it. And so that's dangerous when they talk about that. That to tell you their intentions. And the fact that they want to continue to hide behind these intentions. We got a whole mess. And he's right there leading the pack right now. I don't know that he knows what he's doing. Somebody is pushing him to lead the pack.
Okay, we have another question right here.
I appreciate what both of you are doing in our country, and I wanted to tell you that.
Hold the mic up good.
Am I not close enough? Okay, I worked the federal side for a long time in immigration, and we've talked about it a little bit, how ICE is not available. It's a manpower issue with ICE as well. I don't want to just blame the federal government for not showing up. I mean, they don't have the people to do it either. And it's, when you become law enforcement on a federal level, it is a very political thing. So you are going to chase the things that the guy above you tells you to chase. Drugs, immigration, whatever. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, whenever I retired, we were processing illegal people coming into the country in Tucson at the tune of 50 or 60 a day. And those are the ones we were keeping. Those were the ones we prosecuted. There were lots that we didn't get to. So they have the same problems.
And I'm really glad you brought that up because she brings up a very good point. Make no mistake about it, this is not the line level guys. The ICE employees want to do their job. They're being handcuffed right now by bad policies. And the reason why they're short staffed now is because of the bad policies have increased it. We were on target, last year I think it was about 400,000 I think, or illegals that were apprehended. We're on target for like 1.7 million, 2 million. So they don't have enough staffing because you went around saying you were going to open borders, and overnight it just opened the floodgates. So she's right. The staffing now, because of the changes they made, and number two, it is not the line level guys. Those guys, I talk to them all the time. They're great. this is DC. This is the policies coming out of DC.
Go ahead.
Okay, I have a question. Currently, I don't know what the status is, a bill rolling through the state legislature making it illegal to support any law that's contrary to the U.S. Constitution or state law. What are the odds, like if the president does something to subvert our Second Amendment rights, that any federal agency might come out? I understand that usually they leave it to the state level folks to enforce federal laws. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I don't know that will, I mean, they could try to pass the law, and they're trying to pass that law in this state, which is like, hey, we're anything contrary to the Constitution. It's not quite as succinct as that. One thing I wish is that legislators would come and communicate with us before they put a bill out to understand all of the ramifications that it could have. Look, I don't think that any federal people, or I definitely don't want them coming into our county to take any guns, but I don't want to lose my task force positions either, where I have a really good working relationship with them. And this could be an unintended consequence of a bill like that. That would cost, if the feds were to revoke all that from me, it would cost me millions a year from our county. So I just wish that our legislators would do a better job of sitting down and communicating with us before they put a bill out, as good as it may sound, just to understand some of the consequences that may come with it. Sheriff and I deal with this all the time. You can tug on a string, and there's all sorts of ripples, and our guys don't always understand that. But we have to take a look at when we pull that string, where else does it tug on? So.
Okay, Adam, you want a last word here? Because we're done with
We have one more
Q&A.
question.
Huh?
One more question. Two more questions.
Is it okay with you? It's 7:45. She's the boss.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sad that you are talking here on the House of Truth, because when we came here, we do it for many reasons. And we can talk here over and over and over again, but let me tell you something. My wife had really chronic pain, and the doctor started giving her different pills, narcotics. She was hallucinating. Thank God she quit taking all these pills. Otherwise, she would have been addicted to narcotics. She could have been on the street buying drugs. But you know what? The main root is how the doctors prescribe those medications. And from there, they are regulating all the cartels. They are taking this chance, but not because they say, well, let's go and see what is on the other side and make money. No, it's because the doctor here prescribes those narcotics, and that's how all your family and friends, and some of you ought to know, but that's a reality.
It absolutely is a reality, and many of you know, of course, and we've talked about it before, that the state did finally start cracking down a little bit on the medical practitioners. Even though there was a big outcry from the medical practitioners that said, leave us alone and let us do our job, but I think the general feeling was that the job wasn't being done like it should have been. So now, of course, it's a lot harder. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a lot harder to go get these types of prescriptions and shop around for doctors and to shop around pharmacies and try to get large quantities of these things. Because they're starting to crack down, and I'm not saying it's perfect yet. There's still some things that fall through the cracks, but at least that has been recognized as one of the contributing factors to our drug problem. Because once the doc does finally stop giving you the legal stuff, where do you go, right? Because now you're far too far down the rabbit hole to get back out of it again. So that's being recognized, and that is starting to be cracked down in our state. But and I think that'll probably improve as we go along. And I think it's helped. At least the message is out there that it's going to be a lot harder for you to get these, to continue to get these things when you really don't need them anymore. Okay, are we done?
I think we're done. Okay,
So
gosh, I had a question too, but it's late, so I'm gonna ask it later. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
So very much,
Thank you,
both of
everybody.
you guys, for coming. Okay, all right. Inga's giving me sign language here. We have our 50-50 if you want to sit down for one more minute. Don't forget, we have petitions to sign that'll be at the back. There's constitutions at the back. And if you need to go to the bathroom, the men's is out that door.